And we're back with another episode of the Lakers Fast Break Podcast. We're doing some observations, everyone. It's NBA observations once again. It is Gerald Glassford. Thanks again for watching. Listen, truly appreciate you joining us a little earlier today. No late night stuff right now. It's just hanging out with you, talking the NBA observations. Want to give a big shout out, as always, to first up, our awesome member as part of our membership program, which you could be a part of for emojis, badges, and also as well, big shout outs from me. And that is Mark down in Australia, better known as Xbox. Truly appreciate it. If you want to join up, it's just $2.99 a month. We're at almost 1,800 subscribers. We were at 1,800 subscribers. We're back under 1,800 subscribers, but we'd like to be back over 1,800 subscribers. So please subscribe today to get the latest notifications. Hit that bell, ding, 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 to get the latest notifications on when we go live on the air with the latest Lakers Fast Break podcast. Plus a big shout out to all of our friends, starting with Daniel Berry Sports Highlights. Yo! Also as well, of course, almost like I planned it, but he came on and it's just like, oh, I got to go ahead and hit him up first. Also as well, of course, Joe Soro. Big shout out to him as always, Mr. Simblades, Simblades with a Y.com and Oxide247 at LakersBall.com. John Costa, Clutch Talk and Lakers Corner. I will probably, for you folks listening out there, I will probably run that all-time Lakers draft that's now going to live in infamy, and not in a good way for my good friend John, but we will probably run that for our audio listeners at some point down the road. So be on the lookout for that. But if you want to catch it now, it's on this channel on YouTube. Big shout out to Clutch Talk and Lakers Corner, which we're also on right now. Go ahead and subscribe there today. Lakerholics crew at Lakerholics.com. Hopefully I can get the grouchy guys together. Those old men come out on the weekend, but I don't know when that will be because I know Jamie will be off this weekend. So I may get the troops together if I'm available. Oh boy, that's a disaster waiting to happen. Me and Laker Tom, those were some fascinating early years, I will say. If you want to go check out the early first 100 to 200 episodes in there, Laker Tom and I would go at it. Want to go ahead and recoup that or just find out what Laker Tom is up to with his crazy trade proposals? Check out Lakerholics.com. Also as well, our good friends, Empire Jeff TV, covering the Dodgers right now. Also as well, John McCallion. He is back on YouTube. Always good, man. He stopped by our chat last night. It was good to see him. Good to hear from him. I'm so happy for him. Also as well, our good friends at Lakers in 5. They're 10,000 plus subscribers strong, and they're putting out there each and every day on the Lakers. So go ahead and check out all these great sites. But remember, we need your love here too. Bring it. Bring it to us, please. We need it. Like and subscribe today to get the latest notifications on when we go live on the air. The latest Lakers Fast Break podcast. I see AC Valhalla was underrated. I played 68 hours and loved it. It all depends on the love for AC Valhalla. If you like the side quests, then you will love the game. If you didn't like the side quests, you won't love the way Ubisoft did it. But then again, Star Wars Outlaws, a lot of up and down reviews for that, and I'll hopefully talk about that on a Pop Culture Cosmos upcoming as well. But Empire Jeff, I was just mentioning your show, talking about the Dodgers. Go Dodgers. There you go, my friend. You've been hanging out at Chavez Ravine. Great to have you here as well in the chat. It is Gerald Glassford. Also here today. Hopefully Legend 350 will join us as well. But a good man is here indeed. He is the mastermind behind all those great things that he is saying at Orlando Magic Daily, at OrlandoMagicDaily.com, part of the fan-sided experience. He is back. He's been in our chat for a few occasions in recent weeks. But, you know, we got to ask him who he thinks had some of the best off seasons in the NBA. And that is Alfred Ezman. And Alfred, great to have you back once again.
Yes, Gerald. Thank you for having me back. It's been quite some time. We were a little over, actually. I was just thinking about this while you were talking. We're a little bit over a year now from last year's Orlando Magic preview when you had me on for the first time. So thank you for, I guess, a 1-year anniversary of sorts of being on the show. Thank you for continuing to have me back, even if, you know, my content with the Magic is not on a decline, but decreasing in what I put out. I continue to watch the NBA, continue to draw my analysis from it. I've had a basketball brain as a former player in high school and whatnot my entire life, and love this sport. So again, thanks for having me, and let's talk some hoops. I'm ready.
Let's talk some hoops. But the reason why, I know everybody was talking about your hat, and I know that transferred into Assassin's Creed Valhalla and whatnot. I go immediately to the pop culture. That's just a bad habit of mine. But
Yeah.
it is the NBA we're going to discuss. And I know you didn't want to touch on too many of the things that Legend 350 and I discuss. And I get that, but I don't also want to ignore it for you. So who do you think, starting off, would just briefly glaze over some of the things that Legend 350 and I, before we get into the knee deep on the teams that we didn't talk about, some of the teams that said, you know what, they had a really good summer that we did already mention, because I don't want you to just ignore the fact that and get roasted in the comments. Well, he didn't talk about this team, he didn't talk about that team. So go ahead and let everybody know that you do know the NBA, and you do know that some teams really did well in the offseason.
Oh, of course. One of these teams, you've been loving them and loving what they do in their front office and whatnot. The Oklahoma City Thunder, obviously, are just a big standout for me.
I'm just green with envy.
I am too. And they are the biggest standout, I think, right now in the NBA as far as growing teams go. Looking at their contracts, I mean, they have a ton of people locked up for a while. SGA is there at least until he hits free agency, possible free agency in 2027. He is extension eligible. Same goes for Isaiah Hartenstein, although he's just signed a contract with them. Bringing him in is huge to get a big time presence down low. I know he was not a fun player to play against in New York last season with some of the big men he would face and how they faced him. Lou Dort is also there through 2027. Isaiah Joe, there a while through 2028. Chet Holmgren has a restricted free agent in 2026. And all these guys who are RFAs and free agents coming up is huge, because Oklahoma City right now is top 10 in cap space still, which is unbelievable, to hear that with all the players that they have. So they're going to be able to match teams' offers for Chet if they actually go after them. And I mean, obviously the other top priority is extending SGA in the future. And I'm talking in the future, but bringing a guy like Hartenstein in, I think is huge, because you already have this young core that's going to be there for a while. And you have a big time center now who can be paired along with Chet Holmgren. And that front court looks scary. They're a team. Legend 350 also alluded to this when he was talking about them. I mean, they're going to be one of the top seeds in the West again. I would put a lot of money on that. And I'm excited to see them play. And I thought they did very well this offseason with bringing in Hartenstein. That move really stood out to me. And again, I mean, they did it, and they're still pretty well, or they're in a very good spot as far as cap space goes.
Like I said, just green with envy right now. If I'm as a Lakers fan, that's how you manage a team. At least that's how you put a team in contention for a championship. Again, it's ultimately up to those players and ultimately up to the front office to get that right mix at the elite level. Which I'm not sure Oklahoma City has yet. They have all these pieces, depth, youth. They have some now playoff experience. They have a ton of draft picks. They're still under the cap. Everything is groovy, except for the fact is, how much do we know that SGA will be able to get you there, or does he need someone or 1A or maybe another one to get them all the way? We don't know that yet. We don't know, and we have to see that pan itself out maybe for another season. But again, that's the only unknown. But my gosh, they've, outside of that, they've been able to put themselves in position. So yes, I just wanted to make sure that you put out there that you do know that these teams, and acknowledge these teams had some really great off seasons. But there were some other teams that weren't mentioned by Legend 350 and I that I wanted to make sure that you had a chance to go ahead and give a shout out to. So who is first up on your list, my friend?
Yeah, I'll start. So for those of you watching, obviously, when planning for the show and stuff, I wanted to highlight different teams to just kind of, showcase them and what they're doing. These are teams that I'm going to say that are not, more than likely, probably won't be in the playoffs. If they do, they're a play-in team. But I think for you guys watching, it's beneficial because they're all in the Western Conference. So these are maybe teams it's a good scouting for you guys before the season to see what they did and what you'd have to face once the Lakers play them. And with that being said, we'll kick it off with a little bit of a rivalry team. I'm learning more and more that this used to be a rivalry, Gerald. I'm sure you could touch on it, but the Utah Jazz, I'll start with them just for a second. The Lauri Markkanen trade with his extension earlier in the month, I think it's, safe to say that might be out the window, or it's getting towards being out the window.
Well, it's out for at least a year.
Right. Yeah. So I think they want to stick with him and kind of just move along and pair him with the young core to see what they can do with it. And that young core is intense. I mean, I'm going to go back to the draft and talk about it. Kyle Flipkowski, Isaiah Collier, and then Cody Williams all coming in and looking to be big contributors. I mean, Flipkowski is a great big man to have. And he's also, I think he mirrors what Markkanen can do very well in some certain aspects, certainly has a build sort of like him and whatnot. Cody Williams, I think, is a dynamic player with the ball in his hands, great getting to the rim, has a 3-point shot they can work with and whatnot. They've loaded up on rookies and that should take them far if they continue to hit. Again, this is a Jazz team that's obviously not going to be competitive if they were to get to the playoffs. I mean, they'd be a play-in team, and that would be really, about the extent of what they can do. But I mean, I gotta like what they have. Another guy in this young core, Keontae George. His facilitating's phenomenal. He's still a work in progress. I liked what I saw from him. The 3-point shots, I think, need to go up a little bit. His 3-point shooting, but beyond that, I really like what he has in his bag and whatnot. And then they have John Collins and Colin Sexton for 2 more seasons, and they are one of the best teams right now when it comes to cap space with what they have. So if they want to get extensions done, and I believe, double check for me, I think Sexton and Collins are up for extensions. If they feel the need to keep them, they can do that with the space they have, and that'll be huge. So I think Utah's still kind of experimenting with what they have, and depending on how the Lakers have played them in the past, it's sort of a similar team. But I think the main thing is the rookies they got and whatnot are huge, and it's just this young core that they're trying to build around Lauri that really kind of made it good for them. I think the idea of keeping Lauri Markkanen is great because it's a guy they can build around. I don't know. We don't know if Lauri Markkanen can be the guy that gets them far enough in a playoff scenario, but for the time being, he's a guy that can certainly get them to a play-in if all the pieces click. And really, that's where Utah's at this moment.
Well, I will say I may not be as high on Utah. First off, it starts with Lauri Markkanen.
Yeah,
because I don't think he's a number one player out
right.
there. He has improved greatly in Utah. He's found a home. He was very adamant on not getting traded because he has found a home in Utah during the season that he really enjoys for him and his family. I know that Utah renegotiated, as you see there, according to Bobby Marks, the little cheat sheet that he always brings on. Bobby Marks, by the way, give him a big shout out on Twitter from ESPN. I know a lot of people have a lot of bad things to say about ESPN, but one of the things that Bobby Marks brings is a whole lot of hard work, and you see that reflective in what he does and what he brings in these cheat sheets that are out there for the NBA that folks like us can use as a reference. And that 5 years, 200 is what plus $1 million salary that you're committing to him. I don't know. Again, there's over half a dozen guys I could mention right now on the show that I don't know. I would not have committed those kind of salaries to, but I guess it's the marketplace dictating. If you don't do it, you'll lose them entirely, and that's the problem there. Now, you mentioned as far as the assets they do have, John Collins has not materialized well since his small peak that he had in Atlanta. It's been slow downhill slide since then, and it's unfortunate because I think that he still has time to reclaim his game, but I don't know if he can because it's been so many years now. It's been on the downslide. I think that Utah will try to trade his contract out. Same thing with Sexton, same thing with Clarkson, because I think at this point they're going to go all in on tanking. And you're right, they do have a lot of salary cap flexibility, but I do think that the Cooper Flag sweepstakes, this is a contender in that. With all respect to what Lauri Markkanen can bring, I really think that that they're going to do one more year of hard tanking in order to go ahead and try to get another winning player, possibly that superstar that I was talking about,
Mm-hmm.
added, whole lot cheaper than going out and trying to get a free agent.
Yeah, I think so. And I like that you mentioned that, instead of extending those two, Sexton and Collins, if they don't see it fit, I mean, the draft picks I just mentioned.
Because, Sexton has the injury history already, and
Right.
he's clearly not the same player he once was. And it
Mm.
always depends, because of his size and lack of defensive availability, how well he translates as a starter, or do you have him as a backup? That's all conjecture to everyone out there at this point as far as how they see Colin Sexton. Jordan Clarkson is over 30, had a nice career, can still be a big scorer off the bench for a team. And I think that's probably what is going to happen, is he'll be traded for assets at some point in time down the line.
Yeah. And it's clear with who they got in the draft that those guys can come in and replace. I don't know. We have to wait and see, and the jury's out on what exactly role they'll fit. But I think all three of those guys have a clear, at least, play into what Utah does in their future. And as far as Lauri Markkanen's money goes, I think that's why I can't really see a trade. I mean, imagine just how much they invested into that. It just seems like with Utah, they want to make him work. I do agree with you to an extent. He's not going to be the number one guy, but I think he's a guy that can certainly help. I mean, right now he is. Once they get a Cooper Flag, maybe if they get him in those sweepstakes, he becomes the second or third guy, depending on what these rookies do. But I mean, I really like what, Markkanen can bring to the team as far as just a leadership role. It's a lot of money, like you said, and maybe they try to trade out of it after this season. But to me, it seems like that's commitment. And at least coming from a team I've reported on in the past, you guys know who I'm talking about. They've also made a similar move. That's kind of a commitment piece to a guy who's not going to be their number one guy. I think it's just, they're going to try to see how he fits with these rookies. That's the main thing. Everywhere I look, everyone's loving this decision by Utah for the most part, just because it seems like they have a direction in which they want to go. Again, I think they could do the play-in if all the pieces hit, but if it doesn't, midway through the year as we get to the trade deadline, those guys can be shipped. Those guys can be shipped out that we mentioned, like Sexton and Collins and even Clarkson, and they can get picks back, or who knows, even a lot more. It seems like a rebuild's on the horizon, and Utah prepared for that by getting the one guy they want to keep around, having a bunch of good draft picks this past season. I think they had one of the best drafts, and sort of just build upon it from there.
Once again, it is Alfred Ezman from Orlando Magic Daily, part of the fan side experience. It is Gerald Glassford. Thanks again for watching, listening. Truly appreciate it. Hopefully Legend 350 will be able to join us here in the next few minutes. But until then, Alfred has got more teams that he has his eye on in our NBA observations. So who's next on your list of teams you think had a good offseason?
Well, one player who had a good offseason following getting drafted is Reed Sheppard, and that's why I'm going to give Houston their little segment here on this show. Reed Sheppard, during the Summer League, he's going to be a guy that plays a big role for them. 20 points a game, 5.3 assists, 4.8 rebounds. It's a team that was in the bottom half of the league, I believe right around 23rd or 24th in team three-point shooting. And as far as that goes, that's really going to help this team. I mean, they have a lot of good young talent, but the grand majority of them cannot shoot the long ball, and that's key. What I'm looking at for them, though, for Houston, once again, is one of those teams, and this is what I chose for all. This is kind of like a running theme with all these teams I chose. Very good in the cap space department. They're they're top 10, I'm sorry, overall in the cap space. Jalen Green's going to be a restricted free agent. I imagine Houston, if they feel the need to keep him around, kind of tries to match that deal. I think they do. I mean, I still think he's a young piece that they need to work with a little bit. We saw what he could provide when he had a baby on the way, what he was doing this past season. Another one, and another guy who they really need to keep around more so, I think, than Jalen Green is Şengün, who is also going to be a restricted free agent. Both of these guys are up for extensions, but I think one of them is probably going to get extended this season. If I had to guess for Houston, to be Şengün, just to have your center position locked up. And then I would try my best to match offers for Jalen Green in the offseason, because you kind of got to pick your poison for as far as that goes. And that's going to be a big story for them going forward. The other move they made is AJ Griffin. AJ Griffin was unhealthy last season. He's still a work in progress because he's only had 2 years in the league. Wasn't anything incredibly impressive his rookie year. I think it was right around 9 points a game or something like that. He didn't really rebound well at all, and he only played 20 games last year. I'm not necessarily expecting AJ Griffin to start for them, but he's going to come off the bench and perhaps provide a little more to another young core that's looking to develop. Again, maybe Houston gets in on the Cooper Flag sweepstakes and keeps the ball rolling with this draft stuff, but right now you kind of got to like the talent they have. It's just all about it coming together chemistry-wise, and I think a really good pick in Reed Shepherd, a little bit of a depth piece in AJ Griffin, who still can be developed a little. Just shows, that this team is looking to collect talent still and try to get competitive once they come together.
I saw Reed Shepherd in person. I've said it on the show in Summer League against the Lakers, against Dalton, and he broke his ankles. I'll just say our guy, Dalton Connect, who we still are very high on. And I know that Kurt is waiting for more gushing for Dalton, but Reed Shepherd looked like a man amongst boys against the Lakers. And in Summer League as a whole, he was just really solid, really good, really skilled in several different areas at like NBA level. Looked really comfortable right away, which is scary for the rest of the league. He might end up being their best player. And that's the thing I said on the other show. We were talking about this on the other night, as far as who is or who will become the number one in Houston. They have a ton of wings. Absolutely. Just, envious of the fact that they have a lot of 6'6", 6'7", 6'8", 6'9" players that are multi-talented and can do different things. But which one will stand out? I know Amen Thompson's name was mentioned in our chat. That's a good guess right there. Reed Shepherd, he's not going to start right away, but he may be forcing at the situation at some point, like Brandon Podziemski in Golden State. His play may justify him cracking the starting lineup in the not too distant future and necessitating a trade for one of those guards. But the thing is, though, who makes that next leap up in Houston? They're all good. They're all effective. Cam Whitmore, who we love on this show, who we are still dreading the fact that, we didn't get him when he had the chance. Who will step up and actually become that player? I mean, you mentioned Şengün. Şengün, really, really talented offensive center, has some serious defensive concerns. Jalen Green, really good scoring guard with athleticism, can jump out of the gym. Just absolutely fantastic. But is his shooting consistent enough to scare people when it matters the most in the playoffs? Can he defend at a high enough level in the playoffs? You would think he can with his athleticism, but that doesn't always translate into as far as defensive instincts, et cetera, et cetera. So my question to you is, and Amen Thompson, he started to put things together like Cam Whitmore at the end of the season. Cam Whitmore is more of one of those, like Jalen Green, a really high-end scorer in the making. But can those guys do other things? Amen Thompson looks like a guy that's able to do more things as far as on the with the other defense, playmaking, being able to do a whole myriad of things. But can he shoot well enough? Like the Scotty Barnes question. Can he shoot well enough to get teams to have him focused as a focus of their efforts on defense? So that's my question. Is there someone in Houston? This is right now a team that, just because of its sheer depth, I think is going to win right around what the Lakers are going to win, 40 to 47 games. They could even get surprised if based on other teams' health, they could even surprise and get up to 48, 49, maybe 50 wins if everything worked out. That's only if everything worked out well. Right. But I do see a mid-40s team in this team if everything worked out well. So I ask you though, like some of the other young teams, as far as we talked about Oklahoma City, I've talked about Minnesota. One of those guys really has to step it up to take the next level. In the case of Houston, to get into the playoffs, someone has to, or two guys have to start taking it to the next level. So when do we get out of these? These guys have a lot of promise, have a lot of ability, have a lot of talent, but when did they start putting it together? And who of this mix is going to be that guy, Alfred?
Hard to say. And I think part of this problem that we've seen is a lot of the guys they've selected, particularly the wings, have gotten off to slow starts. Amen Thompson, you saw that at the beginning of this year, not necessarily this lightning quick, start out of the gate. Asar Thompson in Detroit was actually, I think, the guy who stood out more out of the Thompson
twins. He was playing better, but that kind of reversed itself
right.
as it got to the
flipped.
End of the season.
Yeah, and it flipped. And a part of that, I mean, you got to think about it too, Gerald. You're just talking about win totals where they're going to sit at. This was a team that was, scrapping their way back into a play-in spot by the end of the season. I mean, they were right there, fighting and clawing to get in. A lot of that was Amen Thompson. Jabari Smith is a huge one too. He was part of that 3 trio for that top 2022 draft pick with Paolo and Chet. It's a very slow start, but also is starting to pick it up as well, and we're starting to see it accumulate.
Is he a player that can make his own plays in order to get things done, or is he necessitating, or is he in need of someone else to do it for him, as far as that's concerned? Because he can play D,
right?
He can shoot from behind the arc. He's finally starting to put it together, which a lot of people, like myself, had speculated on. Does have the height, talent, athleticism, but his playmaking is the only thing holding him back at this point in time.
Right. Yeah. And that's why Reed Sheppard, I like what you said about Reed Sheppard being the one to step up. It seems like, at least again, Summer League, grain of salt, so on and so forth. But for the pure sake of our conversation we're having right now, it seems like he's the one. I mean, you just talked about it. He went up against a Dalton Connect, who, by the way, like I've said it over and over on the show. I'm sure people watching are sick of this. I saw Reed Sheppard play Dalton Connect during, Kentucky-Tennessee games, and Reed Sheppard gave Tennessee work on Tennessee's home floor with Dalton Connect out there. And it was kind of, I would imagine it was almost similar to what you saw in the Summer League, and it was him playmaking. I think it's both a catch and off the dribble shot. Maybe that can come together and help him out a ton. He's a really good catch and shoot guy. I mean, I have no worries about that once he gets to the NBA and starts playing in the regular season.
He's good on the ball, got good hands. His size is the only thing that I worry about.
Right. That's why it's shocking to see, what he was doing to Dalton Connect, although Kurt was asking about him. Connect's defense is a huge question mark heading into his NBA career. But
it's so funny because I just want to say this. Everybody on Houston, all those guys from 1 to 8, let's say, all have great things that they can give their team, but they all have like one major flaw that stands out that I don't know if they'll be able to overcome to get them to the next level. So
yeah, it's always, I mean, I feel like when you talk about what team needs chemistry like water, it's really Houston. I mean, it's just like, it's a bunch of guys who by themselves are great players in their own rights. They just, for some reason, it just hasn't quite gelled. And maybe that's like that they play the same positions, maybe like Amen and Jabari or whatnot, but it'll be interesting to see. It's the biggest story. I'll continue to say it again too, as they're fighting, is what they're going to do about the Şengün and Jalen Green situation, because again, they met those contracts, at a heading into this year. Both can be extended. The question is, will they do it, or will they fight other teams, or kind of let go as far as the restricted free agency battle goes? It'll be interesting to see. I really think, Gerald, I don't know about you, they're going to extend one. And to me, that's Şengün, because as far as centers go, they don't really have.
That is a hard commodity to find.
Yes, and it is defensively. He is, he gets worked a little bit, but at the same time, looking at their roster up and down, I don't know about anybody other than Steven Adams, that can play the role he does, and I wouldn't be banking on that at that point either. I mean, it's just it's quite a sticky situation that they're in. And I mean, we're saying as if, Şengün's this bad guy. He's not. And honestly, I would continue to roll with it. I mean, you were able to almost get into the play-in last year with him down there. Try it again and see how it works out, and then you have time to figure out this stuff. But it really, how they work out the Jalen Green and Şengün situation this season is going to be huge, and one of the things we're going to be talking about. But overall, just to recap and circle on back, this offseason getting Reed Shepherd, I think, is huge for them because they got a guy that can play make in his own right. It just adds to this talent they have. Again, it's just like it's like a small Tootsie Roll you throw into the Halloween bag, but the AJ Griffin signing as well, it's just yet another development thing that they can work with. He's a guy that'll come off the bench and perhaps provide sparks at times, depending on if he's healthy, because last year just wasn't healthy and wasn't able to show the league or fans anything, of substance. But it's another team to watch out for. You guys, as you guys can see who are watching, I'm not choosing these top contenders necessarily, but I'm choosing these smaller teams that had good off seasons who are trying to find their own paths as far as their futures go. And Houston's one of those. I mean, Houston's a team, like me and Gerald have been saying, it's win total wise that they'll be up there maybe with the Lakers and competing for a play-in again. And it's a tough spot to be in because we've seen teams reach this middle ground of just being play-in, but they can't get beyond that. And that's going to be a huge question for them. Don't know if Reed Shepherd's going to be the one to do it. Probably not this year, just because he's a rookie and that's a big backpack to carry.
But I see things in him that interests me, and you see that spark. And yeah, it's just summer league. Again, you can only take it so far, but you see things, and him stepping on the court right away in his first game and being so comfortable out there. Not nerved. He might have been nervous, but you couldn't tell. And it just, seems to me that it's something that you don't see in a lot of players that I saw.
Yeah, it's certainly intriguing. One of the most intriguing draftees we got in this class, and I'm excited to see it. This Houston team is if you want a cheap NBA ticket to a cheap NBA game to go watch them because they'll produce some highlight plays on that court, and they're not necessarily going to blow teams out of the water by any stretch consistently, but they'll give some teams some hard games, especially if you go to Houston to play them.
Once again, it is the Lakers Fast Break. It is Alfred Ezman from the Orlando Magic Daily, orlandomagicdaily.com, part of the fan-sided experience. Mr. Valhalla himself. He is here talking about some of the teams that he thinks really had a good offseason. There is more to your list, my friend, so please add it on, my friend. Who do you think also stood out this summer in the offseason?
I'm rubbing my hands together at this one. To me, it's one of the most interesting teams in the NBA next season, and I don't know if people are going to be – actually, I think people will agree, but I don't know if people will agree with why. That's the San Antonio Spurs, who I think hit a little bit this offseason. The reason I'm saying this, if you go on, I use Sports Track. I'm sure, Gerald, you're familiar with it. Guys watching are familiar with it. I use this to compile contract, and cap stuff.
I was talking about it last night with Joe. Sport Track I'm just so thankful for them because Sport Track, they don't do everything behind a paywall. They don't do everything.
No.
Yeah, they put
so
it
annoying.
Out there.
Right.
And it's just such a great resource. Such a great resource.
Thank you for no paywall, Sport Track. But anyway, I was looking at San Antonio, and this is a team, they have pretty much everyone locked up outside of the big name that they got for a lot of seasons. I mean, a lot. Devin Vassell is there through 2029 with his contract. Keldon Johnson's there through 2027. Jeremy Sochan, whether or not you're a fan of him, is a restricted free agent in 2 seasons. But then you look at San Antonio's cap space situation. They are 3rd in the league right now in cap space. Obviously, I don't know when Wemby would be new, the exact dates on when he would be up for his contract. Maybe they're saving for that. I would, if that's what they're doing. But it's interesting to see because they have these young guys all together. And it's just, it didn't necessarily all come together. But you add Chris Paul and you throw him into the mix. You're not going to use Chris Paul to score your points. We're beyond that. It's not, it's not anything exceptional scoring wise with him anymore. We're beyond that phase. He's getting older and he's in the twilight, but he's still passing the ball very well. 7 assists a game is nothing to sneeze at it whatsoever. And who's he going to pass to on a lot of pick and roll options? Victor Wembanyama. And you got to think if that connects the way it can possibly, San Antonio will creep up there with their win total, and I think maybe start touching play-in contention, which is dangerous for a lot of teams. Someone mentioned it in the chat, who was at Kurt Affair. Castle was a great pickup. Indeed. I love Stephon Castle coming into the draft. And that's another reason why I think the Chris Paul pickup is huge. I mean, Stephon Castle is learning from a great NBA guard, a really great NBA guard in his own right in his tenure in Chris Paul. It's more of a mentor play. Castle maybe can work his way into a 6-man role with the team, eventually, but just because I think that their starting lineup is mostly set for a good bit of it. But who knows what the limit is with him. The one concerning thing is his 3-point shots. He did not take a lot in college, and he did not make a lot. But as far as on the ball skills go, it's meaning dribbling with the ball in his hands. Very nice and very solid and fluid. I love what I see from that. And they can run him in pick and rolls with Victor Wembanyama. So 2 big guard additions, one a big name, one a big rookie I like a lot. And one's going to mentor the other. Obviously, like I said, Chris Paul, you're not going to get your scoring from him. Do not look at it that way. I'm not looking at it that way. You have plenty of other options to get scoring. One's a 7'4" monster that you can get, a lot of your scoring from. But I have faith still, I think, in Chris Paul in a pick and roll type of situation and to facilitate. His assist numbers back that up. And that's why I like it. And again, it's not going to be a long-term thing, but that's why they have Stephon Castle. So this could be a mentor year for him. I like where San Antonio's at. They're by no means going to win a playoff series, I think, or maybe even get past a play-in. But I certainly think if all of it hits, they can contend for it. And remember, they have a lot of these guys for a good amount of years that are younger, like Vassell and Johnson, and they have a ton of cap space left over.
That they do, my friend. I don't know if they could take that. That's a far leap. I know that Vegas here has them right around 37, 38 wins. I think that is very feasible.
Yes.
To see them go 20 games into the 40s, as far as 20 wins, into the 40s, 20 more wins than last season, that's a pretty tall order. I know that Chris Paul and Harrison Barnes, they're on the later years of their career. But having them in there as far as their experience, I understand it. I get that. And that could be very helpful to them. They've had some mix and match parts, which haven't always worked out well.
Right.
Stephon Castle is a big question mark, but again, a lot of hopes for him. If he does find the range, he could. Nobody's questioning his defensive ability. He is being called the best defensive guard coming out in this draft on more than one occasion. So I don't, with Jalen Suggs, a great example there. The thing is, can he go ahead like Jalen Suggs and improve as an offensive player,
right?
Playmaking and shooting. And that's the big if. We'll see if that develops over the course of the season behind Chris Paul. But you're right. He will get plenty of PT. He will get plenty of look, and Pop is going to go ahead and give him plenty of opportunity, I think, to succeed. Because Chris Paul, at his age, you could only give him a limited amount of minutes. And there's a possibility he'll be gone by February anyways in a trade if he's anywhere near the player he once was. So we'll see what happens there. But yeah, on a 1-year contract, that might just ship him out to a contender if that's something he asked for or the league is asking for. So yeah, I see 37 very much in this future season for them.
That's a good bet.
I just don't know. I can't get there to where some people are already having them in the play-in mix already.
Right.
I know my friend Megan Price, who usually does our San Antonio Spurs outlooks for the past couple seasons, she would probably have them there because she is the eternal Spurs optimist. But I can't get there just yet, unless Victor Wembanyama has an MVP season, which is very possible. But if that's the case and they get to 45 wins, 44 wins, 42 wins, even if they get to 500, it's going to be because Victor Wembanyama had a video game season, which is very, very possible.
It is, yes, and it is quite kind of a reach to say that. I'll clarify too. Touch, maybe they do something like the Houston Rockets, where it's like January out of it, February out of it, March, they're right there. You know what I mean? A handful of games back, and then the season ends and they don't make it. I'll say that as far as touching the play
where
goes.
Houston was this past season, something like that.
Exactly. I would say more that sense when I said touch the play in spots. That's more what I meant. But I mean, I like what you said. 37.5 is what Vegas has them at for their win total. I would, if that's the case, I like that. I think that's very feasible. I mean, that's again, like I said, Chris Paul is not going to be anything long term, but he's there he has a purpose there. You can tell he has a purpose there. I think it might be. I would like to make the case it's a better setup than what he had with the Warriors when he signed with them. I think he didn't realize it, but he walked into a little bit of a house on fire, and by the time he was in there, it was too late. He had to work with what he had. But now that he's in San Antonio, he has a bunch of young guys around him and a young guard he can mentor, like I said, and he has one of the most intriguing players, arguably the most intriguing in the NBA, and Wemby there too to run plays with, and it's something cool to see. And like I said, with cap space, like all the teams I've been talking about, they have a ton. They have a ton, and they don't need to sign anyone anytime soon of major note, I would say.
They have a lot of assets themselves, not at Oklahoma City level, but the Lakers sure would be envious of it as far as what they have in their cash as well. So.
Right. Yes. And Easy BX said Spurs have picks. That is a very good point too. I mean, tons of assets. Be on the lookout. It'll take maybe another year or two, but they'll be back up there playing competitive basketball real soon.
I don't think they're going to speed it up this year, but start, if Victor is doing at a top 5 level this season or next season, I would say next season, you might start to see them. I don't want to say go all in, but they'll start making some noise, start making some higher echelon moves to put them in a spot where they'll be a contender in the Western Conference, maybe by the end, as early as the end of next season. As early, yes. So
very much so.
Well, my friend, it's always great to have you here. KC24J, Lakers, let's go. Absolutely. But are there any other teams that caught your eye? Looks like Legend may not be joining us, but I'll make sure he joins us for our next show, which I'll discuss at the end, which is going to be a fun one. But let me ask you this. Who else caught your eye this summer?
Wow. Well, I had to save the best for last, didn't I? There was one team that caught my eye. I tried to entertain you guys the best I could in the Laker crowd with some Western Conference teams on the rise. I'm going to do the team I do, or I have done as of recent with writing and whatnot. The Orlando Magic once again caught my eye. Heading into this offseason, they had a ton of cap space.
Say that.
Yeah, just, maybe a little, but I had to save him for last. I'm sure maybe people watching were like, he's not going to do it. He's not going to do it. And then ruined. Everything ruined. He's going to do it. But the Orlando Magic caught my eye this offseason. They headed into it with the most cap space they've had in quite some time. I believe it was almost a decade, the most cap space they've had. And they landed their big signing in Kentavious Caldwell-Pope, NBA champion, 3-and-D guard that they bring in. Like his three-point shot a lot. I think it had a peak, more of a peak a few years back, but it's still solid.
Yeah. And I think we could still get them to 40% on decent volume. He's not a high volume three. In fact, Denver was one of the lowest volume 3-point shooting teams in the NBA, but he can get, if he's checking up 5 times a game, 6 times a game, for as a team I've always talked to you about, that's offensively starved, doing anything that they can to provide offense and spacing. Obviously that brings something very much needed. And with the defensive prowess that most of the team has, he doesn't have to work as hard, I believe, on defense. Remember, he was always the guy on the other team's best guard, best wing, best perimeter player. Doesn't have to be the case anymore. He doesn't have to be that guy anymore.
he doesn't. And I'll tell you this too, Gerald, and everyone watching. If you like the Lakers or another team out there, I know Frank loves the Mavs, that sort of thing. If your other team has a guard has guards that look to score a bunch and look to facilitate a bunch, good luck playing Orlando with the defensive duo of Jalen Suggs and Kentavious Caldwell-Pope starting. That's not going to be fun whatsoever. And I think they're really going to be strong on the point of attack defensively, and that's going to create a lot of fast breaks off of steals. It's going to mess up opposing offenses a ton, and it's going to be similar to what we saw last season, but on a whole new level with Kentavious Caldwell-Pope joining the fold. And it's major that this happened because it's a guy who has championship experience in a locker room where all the players are literally my age, which is huge. And I think they could use that a bunch. But I mean, like I said, I think he's defensively very sound, has always been. He still has the 3-point shot. I don't think he needs to take a ton. I would still rather go to Jalen Suggs, who I would presume is going to run point, taking the threes. I'm trusting Paolo's 3-point shot a lot more after this past season. Franz Wagner, but I would encourage him to keep shooting too and develop it a lot more. You have guys off the bench like Cole Anthony that can do it.
Don't let that last playoff game define you. What I would do is I talked about it the other day on Kobe Day. I would show him the clip of Kobe airballing as a rookie in the Utah series. And as far as 3-4 air balls, I think something like that. It was noticeable. It was something that at the time Lakers fans were groaning, but as we all know, he didn't let it affect him. He didn't let it phase him. So I would go to Franz Wagner, and who did very well in the Olympics, and make sure that he is going to make sure that that's not going to define who he is going forward.
No, shout out to him in the Olympics. Second team All-Olympic team. That's huge. That Germany team. I think they were pretty disappointed with the result, but they performed very well in the Olympics. They were competitive throughout, but like you said, I mean, Franz Wagner, for at least the time being, is going to be the team's second option in a respective right behind Paolo Banchero. I mean, until we see otherwise, something else occur. And again, like you said, encourage him to keep shooting. It's your first game 7 and you are a 22-year-old. You shouldn't let that be the end all be all to who you are as a player. And I'm sure he won't. I mean, he is tenacious on the offensive end, always looks to score, not shy about putting shots up. So, he's obviously his 3-point shot, I would hope that would continue to improve. We'll have to see. It took a pretty big slump down. He was in the 20s in 3-point shooting last season. So hopefully that, goes up a little bit. But again, going back to KCP, I love what I saw from him. And then speaking of 3-point shooting, the other move the Magic made in the draft, picking up Tristan da Silva. I made this pick, Gerald, in our mock drafts. I moved up for it, but the Magic didn't have to. So they get the big time 3-point shooting stretch big out of Colorado. He's 6'8". And once again, the Magic get another tall, positionless player that gets to the rim well and shoots the 3 well. It's almost like, I would say it just from a physical perspective, a carbon copy of what Paolo and Franz are, and he's going to come off the bench. He's
going to have to shoot well, though, to get time.
Yes.
If he doesn't shoot well, bringing defense doesn't really do much because you've got 3 guys that can play average or above average or even a spectacular defense in Orlando on your wings already, or your forwards, or even your center if you go smaller. So Da Silva is going to have to go ahead and shoot well from the outside.
Right.
It's imperative for him to get some PT in order to do so. That's my opinion.
I think so too. And I mean, the role he's replacing, the Magic no longer have Joe Ingles. That was expected. Joe Ingles was just an old veteran to have for experience on the team. He's probably going to replace that role and get the Joe Ingles playing time for the time being, which wasn't a lot. I mean, I don't know the exact average, but it was under 10 minutes a game. And, if he could take a couple shots, in that time and make them, that's a huge spark for the team in and of itself. I mean, I don't expect him really to start unless guys like Paolo or Franz get hurt and Jamal Mosley has to, twitch the lineup a little bit. But, I can see him taking the Joe Ingles role. And, you got to think about it too. I mean, there's still players on this team that they have for a while. We did not get a healthy dose of Anthony Black like we needed to see him develop. And we did not get pretty much any dose of Jet Howard, both of which were lottery picks 2 years ago now. Jet Howard spent most of his year in the G League, and he was really good. He was the best player in the Osakola Magic. And Anthony Black, when he would come in, I'm sure you remember that big winning streak at the beginning of the season. He started that entire winning streak. He was the point guard because they did not have Markelle Fultz out there for most of it. Actually, I think all of it. So we have to see more from them, and they're going to step up and get more playing time, I think, with Markelle Fultz leaving. Someone mentioned him leaving in the chat. I hope he does well. Fultz is still a good guy you can have off the bench. Agent. Right. If you need a bench guard badly, like water, give him a call. He can't start, and we all know this. He can't start and be a starting guard on a team. I have faith in him, though, to come off the bench and at least, get some filler minutes in when your starters need rest and do fine. He has the Orlando Magic defensive gene in him. He can get to the rim and facilitate, pass back out, or try to score. His free throw shooting was well improved, which was a big part of this Magic team a year ago. Most of their offense was getting fouled and getting to the line. Not the bait fouls necessarily, but I meant getting to the rim and getting bumped, to draw shots, and that's what they were. And they had I think it was the most free throw attempts per game in the NBA, if not second most. So it's huge. There's a lot of young pieces that this team added or has had that didn't get to play last year that we're going to see. And on top of that, the KCP pickup is huge for this team. Someone mentioned, can they beat Boston and Philly? I like what you said, Gerald. Not yet. I mean, I'm not going to say that right now, but hard for me to see them, finishing outside the top 6 in the East. And
they got a taste, though. They got a taste with this playoffs, what they can do. They're not there yet, but like some of these other young teams that we've been talking about, Spurs, Rockets, Timberwolves, Thunder, they are in many ways able to compete now. And if some injuries happen, you never know as far as the regular season. Postseason, I still think that they're a player away from going far in the postseason. But I do think that they can give some people some fits and problems just because of the fact that they can defend as a team probably as good as anyone else.
Oh, definitely. And things to watch out for front office wise this season. Jalen Suggs is a restricted free agent after this year. He is extension eligible. That's priority number one. Once this season starts, is getting him an extension. They're still very good with their cap situation, still top 10 in the NBA. I don't really have any, unless it's some ridiculous price, I don't really think they'll have an issue getting it done. So that's a thing to watch out for. I think, Gerald, and you've harped on him a good bit. He's earned an extension for a decent amount of money. I mean,
I like Suggs. I like him.
I do.
I was huge on him on this show when he was coming out of the draft. He is not quite lived up to those expectations, but there is very few defensive guards better than him.
Yes.
And if he just continues to improve his shooting and his playmaking to more than adequate status, I think he could be one of the better than average point guards for NBA starting guards in this league. So
he has all defensive team, first team defense potential, at some point in his career, if he keeps living up to this. It's getting to that point. And I do want to say this too. He's not a young guy. He's been in the league for a hot sec, but Laker Tom kept doing this during the mock draft. And I want to say this, Jonathan Isaac got extended. So any hopes Laker Tom had, the Magic, in my opinion, clearly view him as a defensive hoss to have off of the bench, and they're going to keep him
healthy. Just
stay healthy. Yes. We got it. We got it last year with his health. Yeah. Just stay healthy. Just stay healthy and keep doing it.
And I think that's the best thing for him is to run him 20 to 25 minutes a game as either a spot starter or as maybe a center, as far as a smaller center, or as a sixth guy coming off the bench. Don't put too much on his plate, like earlier in his career when he was thought to be the franchise guy in Orlando. And I think that's hopefully going to help out his career quite a bit. But Alfred, just great conversation today. And once again, hopefully we're going to get Legend next time, because got a good episode the next time we get you guys together, because hopefully, if I can get you guys together, our next show we do together will be on who had the worst off seasons in the NBA. So that'll be a fun examination on who we think did poorly in this NBA off season. And I'm not going to go ahead and give away any names, Lakers. But I will say that there will be some teams on this list, and it'll be a lot of fun to go ahead and discuss.
Oh, yeah.
Couple things before we head on out. We did talk about Marco Fultz still being a free agent. We don't know where. I think some team will go ahead and offer a flyer on him. I think the Lakers should have, because I thought the Lakers probably need a backup point guard. I think that could do things, but unfortunately they don't have the space to do so, so they're pretty much screwed there. I will say, though, that the other question we were going to ask in regards to, he wanted, actually, Kurt Affair wanted you to gush over, he already knew this answer because he's heard you before say this, but he wanted you to gush over your fellow Tennessean, that you have so much pride for Dalton Connect. And yes, we've been hard on his defense. And ultimately, how far he gets, I think he'll be a 40% shooter in the league at some point. But his defense will take him as far as he's going to go in the league. And we're seeing now guys like Landry Shamet, wrong Landry, but and others who were specialists that could stay in the league if they shot 38 to 42%. Now, after their contracts are up, they're looking for jobs.
Right.
And it's because they couldn't do anything else, rebound, pass, and defend. Dalton can play make a little bit from what I've saw in summer league, so I'm encouraged by that. But the defense will take him as far as he can go.
Yeah, I mean, that's the question mark, highlighted, asterisks, parentheses, bolded, italics, any form of visual standout you want of his game is his defense. As far as what the concerns are, it's defensively, he's gonna have to get adjusted some way, somehow. I mean, you guys, I would see your recaps of games, and it would just be Austin Reeves can't play defense. This guy can't play defense. Blah 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 blah.
Even though we just got a letter saying that we don't stress defense enough on the show. I thought was just absolutely moronic. But my
condolences on that whole situation. You guys do not deserve that. But I want to say
emails.
Goodness, I'll save my eyes, Gerald, from all that. Please. But anyway, I mean, I've seen you guys when I watch the show, whenever I do complain about it with players. And I mean, you're probably beyond sick of it, and rightfully so. So Dalton Connect, that's going to have to be one thing. Offensively, Gerald, I think he's going to be pretty impressive. Maybe it's probably not going to be like anything rookie of the year wise. But I know I made that joke in the chat. That's just me being a Tennessee freak. So that's why I said it. But offensively, I think he's going to be impressive. He won't be your number one option, but he's a guy you can get points from if you need it. That's 3-point shooting, getting to the rim. Mid-range was really good. Good fall-away jumper. I really like the fall-away jumper. He has a lot. As far as an average prediction goes, I would say if he gets the playing time, I think he will. Probably close to 10 points a game-ish, which is a good start for him. Maybe a little under it if I had to guess. But I think if he's not shy about taking shots, he can do it. And I think that's where he should, for the time being, kind of make his name. And really, I think that's what stands out the most is his offensive bag, especially in one-on-one situations. Of course, he's going to run into defenders that have been in the league for a while that will be able to stop it. But once he plays some of these teams that are not as known for their defense, like I'll use the last year's examples, Atlanta or Indiana, who are all offense and no defense. He can go and feast at times. And I think that's what you'll see from him. Defensively, that's the key to watch. And he can probably get away with it this year, despite you and Joe and Magic Man's frustrations you may have about it. But going forward, you're right. As far as a long career goes, It's something that's going to need to improve. I think career-wise, he could be a 15 points per game, 16 points per game scorer in some of his best seasons if he keeps playing for a long time. The question just becomes defensively, what can he do? And like you said, you keep harping on it, and I know I sound like a broken record, but that's the biggest question. Offensively, obviously he's going to run into defenders that are tough, and he'll get a lesson every now and then, but there's going to be a lot of games where he'll impress people, I believe.
Absolutely, my friend. I just think, again, I've seen some things as far as what he can do off the ball.
Mm-hmm.
And obviously running a lot of action for him will be necessary, but I don't see, I know I could see a possibility in a world where he could get 17 to 20 a game on the right platform. If he is becoming one of the best sharpshooters in the league, I think that's a possibility. But that's, again, down the road. If he plays well right out of the bat, you never know. JJ might try something drastic if the team is not finding the rhythm, and might throw him in there in the starting lineup just for a change of pace if he's not getting what he needs to get out of the guards, because that's been a source of issues for us. But again, that's all wait and see how he develops. But yes, the defense is obviously a major concern, something we've stressed about here constantly, despite other people not listening correctly. But before we head on out, my friend, and before you give the plug on what you're up to, I know the Xbox, and I told Xbox I would ask him, where's the origin of the name Ezman?
Origin of the name Ezman. So I believe, well, obviously it comes from my dad's side, the last name. My dad's side is mostly Polish with a little bit of German. I do have from my mom's side, I like the combo. I think it's a cool combo on my mom's side, Italian and Norwegian. I think that's unique. It's sort of like how in the world did that intertwine? But it happened that way. So Ezman is Polish. It is a Polish last name. There's a lot of skis, of course, in Poland. I think this is one of the ones, though, where you see Ezman on occasion every now and then. Most of my family's Polish, big Polish flag in the garage. It has the, Gerald, I don't know if you know what I'm talking about. They used to have a rooster or something on their flag. Now it's just plain colors. But it's the one with the rooster on the flag, the old school, the throwback, if you will. So Polish last name Ezman.
I think Xbox was hoping you would be Australian, so have some Australian.
No,
from Australia. So
Xbox, I want to go there. I want to visit. So keep your line open for me, please.
KC24J has our touching on our Dalton Connect. Do you think he has that above average defensive potential? Absolutely not. I don't think he does.
Yeah.
If he gets to average, KC, that's what I'm hoping for. Is if he gets to average, even if he becomes a slightly below average, but he is shooting so well and scoring for you 17 to 20 points a game. As I mentioned the other day, Alfred, that some of these teams are taking the Indiana route and going all in on the offensive side of the ball. Sacramento is one that comes to mind.
Mm-hmm.
It may not be necessary, until a playoff run is as far as regular season goes. It may not be necessary to focus so much on the defensive end, so a player like Dalton Connect can flourish more in the regular season. But when it comes right down to it, if he can get to at least an slightly below average or to average level defensively, Casey, I think we will have a winner in Dalton Connect.
I think so. Yeah, I was about to say, I think so too. And you saw Indiana took that approach. They got a top 6 free of any play-in activity playoff spot and got all the way to the Eastern Conference Finals by doing this. Granted, I don't think that's going to happen again. I would be betting money against it. But for all intensive purposes, that is what happened this past season. A lot of it was the matchups they got. They got a New York team who, didn't really have a ton of playoff experience, in general, probably about as much as any other of the Eastern teams that got in on the bottom half away from Boston. But it worked for Indiana this year, and I think it'll work again. Indiana is going to be fighting for a top 6 again in the East. And again, with Dalton Connect, KC, he does have, you just said this, he does have the length, absolutely, and that's where his offensive bag comes from. It's just that length he can get around people with layups, shoot over the top, and that sort of thing. The above average defender is just a lot to gain and maintain.
I can't get myself there yet. I
I
can't.
can't.
I can't get myself to average yet.
Right. I hope.
That's
I
a
hope
big
Casey,
win
but
for him if he gets to be an average defender. Yeah, he does have the size and the length, but again, it's about effort and defensive instincts, and it's not just the fact that Reed Shepherd blew by him on
right.
that famous play, and it's the fact that all throughout the summer, guys who are not going to be in the league were testing him and one other Laker constantly, as far as I think it was Hinson, if I'm not mistaken, in regards to they were constantly testing those guys, and also as well the Lakers' second round draft pick last year. They were testing those guys, and repeatedly those three guys were failing on the defensive end and just letting guys drive left and right. And if he's not if he gets to the point where he's not a matador, I think that's a big win for the Lakers.
I think so too. I mean, and I would just imagine this scenario: if KC, if you're on board with him being an above average defender at some point, and offensively he does what Gerald and I think and can be that high teens, 20 points per game scorer. I mean, that's like an all-star caliber player in and of itself. If that were the case, I don't think I have a hard time. Like Gerald said, I really do have a hard time wrapping my head around that. Offensively, I think he has a very good chance to flourish in the NBA, not as a first option per se, but as a starter at some point on a team that's competing for playoffs. As of right now, I can see that happening. Not off the bat, but later on, I could see it happening.
I think the ultimate ceiling for him would be like a poor man's Klay Thompson on the offense. That is the ultimate ceiling, like a poor man's Klay Thompson, not actual Klay Thompson, but just right below on offense, but definitely not on defense. And I'll leave it at that. And again, if he gets to an average level defender at some point in time in the league, I think the Lakers would be absolutely ecstatic on that.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. So. All right, my friend, before we head on out, you need to go ahead and do that cheap plug to go ahead and talk about what you're up to at OrlandoMagicDaily.com or whatever it is you want to go ahead and cheap plug at this point in time, my friend.
Yeah, so just to keep you guys filled in on what I'm doing and stuff, I told Gerald before we got on slightly, I think my time with Orlando Magic Daily and Fansided is coming to an end just because of job stuff coming up and whatnot. I'm 22 years old and I got to start making money at some point. So that's the stage I'm at. I love Fansided. I told Gerald and I'm telling you guys, it's a great platform. You have a lot of freedom as a contributor for them as far as what you want to write about whenever you do. You don't have a schedule. That also comes, with financial. It just comes with financial burdens I have as a human being, finding a job and whatnot, and that's what I'm searching for. You guys, I've been locked in this summer with baseball, whether it's college baseball. I continue to do that for Southeastern 16, SEC baseball. We have our off-season weekly show on just random topics. Right now, we're hosting people from respective programs in the SEC talking about their baseball programs, what's next for them in 2025. I'm continuing to write for the time being as far as Fansided goes with Rays colored glasses for Tampa Bay Rays news. I'm sure all of you West Coast people watch a ton of Rays baseball, but feel free to check it out as I say that sarcastically. I'm doing that as well, and I'm looking to get a job, and I think it's going to be, hopefully, knock on wood, I don't know if you could hear that, hopefully it's going to be somewhere in the baseball media community, so be on the lookout for that. I will, if I'm back on here at any point, if Gerald will let me back on, I'll be glad to fill you guys in on that as well. But do not be discouraged. Do not take my legitimacy as a basketball guru for granted. I will still watch the NBA as much as I can. Because of my experience writing for the Magic, I'll watch the Magic a ton just because I know that team like the back of my hand at this point, watching what they're doing and whatnot. I'll watch the Lakers to fill you guys in on how I feel that they're doing and stuff. I'll have all my basketball knowledge, stuffed up here still. So although my time with Orlando Magic Daily is coming to an end, I feel like in the near future, I'll be continuing to watch basketball and just, observing from afar and always happy to hop back on.
Once again, it's Alfred Ezman for now. part of the fan-sided experience for the OrlandoMagicDaily.com. Plus, he also covers the Tampa Bay Rays and so much more. And whatever path you take, my friend, I said it before and I said on the show, we're behind you 100%. Don't ever feel bad if you can't make it on as much as you like, but you're always welcome back. You know this.
Well, thank you, sir.
So, and as many times as you can. Everybody seems to love your input that's in the chat. You give such great NBA knowledge and advice, and we're just rooting for you, man. We're just rooting for you, and hopefully you will be able to achieve all your dreams and goals as far as in the sports world, my friend.
Well, thank you so much. Thank you guys for being supportive in the chat. You guys are a very good audience for Gerald. Continue to keep that up. I wish everyone who watched the college baseball stuff were as nice as you guys. I've gotten some pretty critical comments from some SEC fans, but you guys are awesome, and continue to keep it up for Gerald and the show. Yeah. Oh God. If only there were some of you guys who lived in my area, you would see it. And I'm sure Gerald knows what I'm talking about to an extent too. So, but anyways, keep it up. You guys are a great audience. Feel free to reach out. My Twitter's Alfred Ezman. It's very easy. It's just my name, and I'm the first thing to pop up. It's a pretty unique name at that. So you'll see me on there. Send me a message. If you guys have anything NBA wise or just sports wise or life wise you want to talk about, my lines are always open. Thank you guys. I hope to be back on here at some point to do some basketball talk at any time. I'm glad you guys support me. And once again, I may not be writing specifically about basketball anymore with the Orlando Magic Daily, but I'll be watching them, the Lakers, and everything NBA from this point forward, still with the same sort of intent to get knowledge of this sport, as I'm a sports guy just as much as you guys watching, and Gerald and Joe and everyone else on the channel.
You will be coming back on soon, though. I'm going to arrange it, trying to get both you and Legend on at the same time here in the coming days to follow up, because we talked about who had the best NBA off seasons. The fun part for, I think, all of us, especially me, is who had the worst off seasons, because I think that's what we love to rip on the most. So definitely would love to have you a part of that. We'll go ahead and schedule it out here in the coming days. And I cannot thank you enough, Alfred, for everything that you've given us in the past. I'm glad that we were a resource for you as far as when you're out there, and you mentioned that you do a bit of podcasting, and hopefully, if they need, they can reference. They could always email me. I can reference, and I can get them all of your episodes at any point in time. So yeah, if you have a chance out there, please support Alfred Ezman on Twitter and at Orlando. Well, while he's there, OrlandoMagicDaily.com. Well, Alfred, great conversation as always. Again, we're trying to get through these slow weeks as best as possible. Your insight is helping us through that, and can't wait till we discuss who really crapped the bed this offseason. That's the conversation I am just dying to have with you, my friend, and hopefully
it'll be fun. Mm-hmm.
All right. Well, thank you, Alfred. Truly appreciate you joining us. Thank you, everyone in the chat. Mark, aka Xbox, down under in Australia. Cannot thank you enough for being our main member, our first member for our membership program. It's just $2.99 a month. Emojis, badges, call-outs, and hopefully more will be added. But please, you remember, you'll know that at $2.99 a month. So please join us there on YouTube. The link is in the description below. And last but certainly not least, you have to go ahead and please like this video, comment down below if you're watching this after the fact with any of your thoughts. And of course, to help those algorithms, please subscribe today to get the latest notifications on when we go live on the air with Joe, the Lakerholics, John Costa, Alfred Ezman, Legend 350, or whoever stops on by right here at the Lakers Fast Break Pod.